The sound of glass shattering echoed through the beachside restaurant, followed by a chorus of gasps from nearby diners. Xavier Benson lunged forward, his weathered hands catching his 6-year-old daughter Lily before she could step on the broken shards scattered across the wooden deck. "I'm sorry, Daddy," Lily whispered, her brown eyes welling with tears as she stared at the fallen glass of water she'd accidentally knocked over. "It's okay, sweetheart," Xavier assured her, his voice low and gentle as he lifted her away from the mess. At 32, the single father's face showed the subtle lines of someone who'd weathered more than his share of storms. Accidents happen. Xavier quickly looked around for something to clean up with, knowing that his shift was about to start. He'd brought Lily to the restaurant because his regular babysitter had called in sick, and he couldn't afford to miss another day of work. The manager had reluctantly agreed to let her sit at a corner table with her coloring books while Xavier waited tables. "I'll get that," said a calm, unfamiliar voice. Xavier turned to find a woman already kneeling beside the spill, carefully picking up the larger pieces of glass with a napkin. Her chestnut hair was pulled back into a loose bun, and despite the casual sundress she wore, there was something unmistakably elegant about her. "Please, you don't have to do that," Xavier said, embarrassed. "I'll clean it up." The woman looked up at him with warm hazel eyes. "It's no trouble." "Really?" Xavier hesitated, then nodded gratefully. "Thank you, I appreciate it." "I'm Brooke," she said with a smile that made the corners of her eyes crinkle. "Xavier, and this is my daughter, Lily." Lily peeked out from behind her father's legs, her initial embarrassment fading. "I'm 6, she announced proudly. Brooke's smile widened. 6 is a very important age. I remember when I was 6, I could tie my shoes and count to 100. "I can count to 200, Lily replied with the confidence only a child could muster. Xavier checked his watch and grimaced. "I'm so sorry, but I need to start my shift." "Lily, remember what we talked about. You're going to sit at that table over there and color quietly while Daddy works." Brooke stood, brushing off her hands. "I'd be happy to keep an eye on her for a bit if that helps." Xavier's protective instincts flared. "That's very kind, but I understand," Brooke said quickly. "I'm a stranger, but I'm sitting right there alone." She gestured to a table with an open laptop and a half-finished iced tea, "and I wouldn't mind the company." Xavier hesitated. There was something trustworthy about this woman, but years of raising Lily alone had made him cautious. Before he could respond, his manager's voice cut through the moment. "Benson, table 7 needs attention now." Xavier ran a hand through his dark hair. "I'm sorry, I need to go," Brooke said. "I promise I'll stay right here where you can see us." Xavier knelt down to Lily's level. "Would you like to sit with the nice lady while I work? You can still color, and I'll be right over there." Lily nodded, already pulling her coloring book from her small backpack. "Thank you," Xavier said to Brooke. "I'll check in constantly." "Take your time," Brooke replied. "I've got plenty of work to keep me busy too." As Xavier hurried to table 7, he cast one last glance at his daughter, who was already chatting animatedly with Brooke. Over the next hour, Xavier divided his attention between his tables and keeping an eye on Lily. To his surprise, she seemed completely at ease with Brooke. They colored together, and at one point, Xavier noticed Brooke showing Lily something on her laptop that made his daughter's eyes widen with delight. During a brief lull, Xavier approached their table. "Everything okay here?" Lily beamed. "Brooke is teaching me about dolphins." "Did you know they sleep with one eye open?" "I didn't know that," Xavier said, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. "She's a wonderful child," Brooke said. "Very bright." Xavier nodded proudly. "That she is. Can I get you another iced tea?" "That would be lovely, thank you." When Xavier returned with the drink, he noticed Brooke quickly minimizing something on her screen. For a moment, he caught sight of what looked like a complex spreadsheet. "Sorry to interrupt your work," he said. "Not at all. I needed a break anyway." Brooke took a sip of her tea. "So, are you from here originally?" Xavier shook his head. "No, we moved here about 3 years ago. Thought the beach town might be a good place for a fresh start." He didn't elaborate on what they'd needed a fresh start from. And is it a good place? Brooke asked. Xavier looked at Lily, who was now absorbed in her coloring again. It's getting there. The winters are tough, not many tourists, fewer shifts, but we manage. Before Brooke could respond, Xavier was called away again. The rest of his shift passed in a blur of orders, plates, and grateful glances toward Brooke, who seemed genuinely content to keep Lily company. When his shift finally ended at 3 p.m., Xavier approached their table once more. I can't thank you enough for watching her. You really saved me today. It was my pleasure, Brooke said, closing her laptop. She's delightful company. Lily tugged on Xavier's hand. Can Brooke come with us to the tide pools? Please, Daddy. Xavier blinked in surprise. Sweetheart, I'm sure Brooke has other plans. Actually, I don't, Brooke interjected. I'm here on vacation for 2 weeks, and my afternoon is completely free. Please, Daddy, Lily pleaded, her eyes wide with hope. Xavier looked at Brooke, trying to gauge her sincerity. You really don't mind? I'd love to join you, she said, if that's okay with you. There was something in her eyes, a genuine interest, maybe even a hint of loneliness that made Xavier nod. Then, we'd love to have you. The tide pools were only a short walk from the restaurant. As they strolled along the beach, Lily skipped ahead, occasionally stopping to examine a seashell or poke at the sand with a stick she'd found. So, you're on vacation? Xavier asked Brooke. Yes, first one in. Too long, she admitted. My colleagues practically forced me to take some time off. What do you do? Brooke hesitated. I work for a technology company, nothing exciting. Xavier sensed there was more to it but didn't press. Well, I hope you're enjoying your break. I am now, Brooke said, her gaze meeting his for a moment before she looked away. The tide pools were a riot of color and movement. Lily squealed with delight as she discovered tiny crabs, sea anemones, and small fish trapped in the natural aquariums left by the receding tide. Look, Daddy. Look, Brooke, she called, pointing to a bright orange starfish. Xavier and Brooke knelt beside her, their shoulders nearly touching as they leaned in to see. It's beautiful, Brooke said softly. Xavier found himself watching her profile instead of the starfish. The afternoon sun caught in her hair, highlighting strands of gold among the brown. When she turned and caught him looking, he quickly glanced away, a warmth creeping up his neck that had nothing to do with the sun. They spent nearly 2 hours exploring the tide pools. Xavier was struck by how naturally Brooke interacted with Lily. She was patient, engaging, and seemed genuinely interested in everything his daughter had to say. It was a quality he didn't often see in the few women he'd dated since becoming a single father. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Lily's energy finally started to wane. Xavier scooped her up, and she rested her head against his shoulder, her eyelids heavy. Looks like someone's ready for dinner and bed, he said. I should let you get home, Brooke said, though Xavier thought he detected a note of reluctance in her voice. Actually, Xavier found himself saying before he could think better of it, we usually get pizza on Fridays. Nothing fancy, just the local place down the street. Would you like to join us? Brooke's face lit up with a smile that made his heart skip. I'd like that very much. The pizza place was a small, family-owned establishment with checkered tablecloths and strings of lights hanging from the ceiling. By the time their pepperoni and mushroom pizza arrived, Lily had perked up enough to regale Brooke with stories about her first-grade class and her best friend Emma. And then Miss Peterson said I was the best reader in the whole class, Lily said proudly, cheese stretching from her slice to her mouth. That's quite an accomplishment, Brooke said, handing her a napkin. What's your favorite book? As Lily launched into a detailed description of her favorite picture book about a dragon who couldn't breathe fire, Xavier found himself studying Brooke. There was an ease about her, a confidence that was attractive but not intimidating. Yet sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, a flicker of something stress, perhaps, or loneliness crossed her face. What about you? Brooke asked suddenly, breaking into his thoughts. What do you like to read, Xavier? Xavier laughed softly. When do I have time to read? Everyone has something they make time for, Brooke pressed gently. Xavier considered this. I read a lot of astronomy articles online. The night sky, it's always fascinated me. Really? Brooke leaned forward, her interest evident. Any particular aspect, all of it, Xavier admitted. The vastness, the unknown. I used to dream about being an astronomer when I was younger. What happened? Xavier's eyes flickered to Lily, who was now attempting to build a tower with her crusts. Life happened, different priorities. Brooke nodded, understanding in her eyes. Dreams can change. Doesn't mean they disappear. After dinner, they walked slowly back toward the restaurant where Xavier's truck was parked. Lily, her energy renewed by food and a second wind, ran ahead again, chasing after a seagull. Not too far, Lily, Xavier called. She's amazing, Brooke said. You've done a wonderful job with her. Xavier smiled, the compliment warming him more than it probably should have. Thank you. It's not always easy, but she's worth every struggle. Where's her mother? Brooke asked, then immediately shook her head. I'm sorry, that's personal. You don't have to answer. Xavier took a deep breath. No, it's okay. She left when Lily was 2, decided motherhood wasn't for her after all. Last I heard, she was in California. I'm sorry, Brooke said quietly. Xavier shrugged. Don't be. It was hard at first, but honestly, we're better off. Lily deserves someone who wants to be in her life 100%. They reached the parking lot, and an awkward silence fell between them. Xavier didn't want the evening to end, but couldn't think of a reason to prolong it. Well, thank you again for today, he said finally. You really helped me out. It was my pleasure, Brooke replied. Truly. Are you staying nearby? Xavier asked, suddenly realizing he should offer her a ride. At the Sandpiper Inn, just up the beach. I can walk, it's not far. At least let me drive you, Xavier offered. It's getting dark. Brooke smiled. That would be nice, thank you. The drive to the inn was short, filled with Lily's sleepy chatter from the back seat. When they pulled up to the entrance, Xavier hesitated. Listen, I know you're on vacation and probably have plans, but if you'd like to join us for something tomorrow. He trailed off, suddenly unsure. I'd love to, Brooke said quickly. I don't have any plans. We usually go to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. Nothing exciting, but they have great strawberries this time of year. Strawberries are my favorite, Brooke said with a smile. What time? They agreed to meet at 9 the next morning. As Brooke stepped out of the truck, she leaned back in briefly. Thank you for sharing your day with me, Xavier. And you too, Lily. See you tomorrow, Brooke, Lily called, waving enthusiastically despite her drooping eyelids. As Xavier drove home, he found himself smiling. It had been a long time since he'd felt this way, like something unexpected and wonderful had just entered his life. The next morning, Xavier woke earlier than usual. He spent extra time choosing his clothes, settling on a blue button-up shirt that a previous girlfriend had once said brought out his eyes. He felt slightly foolish for the effort, but couldn't deny the flutter of anticipation in his stomach. Lily was equally excited, chattering about Brooke as Xavier helped her dress and brush her teeth. Do you think Brooke likes strawberry jam? I want to show her how to make it like Grandma taught us. I don't know, sweetheart. You can ask her when we see her. They arrived at the farmer's market a few minutes early, Xavier scanning the growing crowd for Brooke. When he spotted her walking toward them, his heart did an unexpected flip. She wore white shorts and a green top, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked fresh and beautiful in the morning light. Good morning, she called, waving as she approached. Lily broke free from Xavier's hand and ran to greet her with an enthusiastic hug that momentarily caught Brooke by surprise before she returned it warmly. Someone's happy to see you, Xavier said as he joined them, fighting the urge to embrace Brooke himself. The feeling is mutual, Brooke replied, her smile including both him and Lily. The farmer's market was bustling with locals and the occasional tourist. They wandered from stall to stall, sampling fresh bread, local honey, and of course strawberries. Xavier bought a large basket for Lily's jam-making plans, along with some fresh vegetables for dinner. So, what's the verdict on the strawberries? Xavier asked as Brooke bit into one. She closed her eyes briefly. Definitely worth the trip. As they continued through the market, Xavier noticed Brooke checking her phone occasionally, a small frown crossing her face each time. "Everything okay?" he asked after the third time. Brooke sighed, slipping her phone back into her pocket. "Just work. Sorry. No need to apologize. I thought technology companies gave their employees proper vacations." Something flickered across Brooke's face. "They're supposed to, yes." Before Xavier could press further, Lily tugged on Brooke's hand. "Will you come to our house and help me make jam, please?" Brooke looked to Xavier, a question in her eyes. "We'd love to have you if you don't have other plans," he said. "No other plans," Brooke assured them. "And I'd love to learn how to make strawberry jam." Xavier's small rental house was about a mile from the beach, not close enough for an ocean view, but near enough that on quiet nights, he could hear the waves. It was modest. 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a kitchen that had seen better days. But he kept it clean and had done his best to make it a home. Still, as he unlocked the front door, he found himself seeing it through Brooke's eyes: the worn furniture, the faded curtains, the water stain on the ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix. "It's not much," he said apologetically as they stepped inside. Brooke's eyes traveled around the space, taking in Lily's artwork on the refrigerator, the small bookshelf crammed with children's books, and the family photos on the walls. "It's lovely," she said, and something in her voice told Xavier she meant it. "It feels like a home." Lily immediately took charge of the jam-making operation, directing Brooke to wash the strawberries while she climbed onto a stool to reach the sugar in the cabinet. Xavier watched them work together, Brooke following Lily's instructions with exaggerated seriousness that made his daughter giggle. As Lily carefully measured sugar into a bowl, Brooke moved to stand beside Xavier, who was leaning against the counter. "She's quite the little chef," Brooke observed. Xavier nodded proudly. "Gets that from my mother. She used to spend hours teaching Lily to bake before she moved to Florida last year." "You miss her," Brooke said. It wasn't a question. "Every day, but the warmer climate is better for her arthritis, and we talk on the phone every Sunday." Brooke's phone buzzed again, and she grimaced as she checked it. "Persistent colleagues," Xavier noted. Brooke hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Xavier, I haven't been entirely honest with you." Xavier straightened, a knot forming in his stomach. "Oh. I'm not just a regular employee at a tech company. I'm the CEO of Stellaris Tech." Xavier blinked. The name was familiar. He'd seen it in news headlines, a rapidly growing company known for its innovative cloud security solutions. "You're that Brooke Sullivan." She nodded, looking suddenly uncertain. "I should have told you yesterday. I'm sorry." Xavier ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this information. "Why didn't you?" "Because when people find out who I am, everything changes," she said quietly. "The way they talk to me, what they tell me, even how they look at me. Yesterday was the first time in years that someone just treated me like a normal person." Xavier glanced at Lily, who was now sorting the strawberries by size, oblivious to their conversation. "I get that, I think." "But why tell me now?" "Because I like you, Xavier, and Lily, and I don't want to build anything on a half-truth." Before Xavier could respond, Lily called out, "Daddy, we need the big pot." Xavier moved to help her, his mind racing. Brooke Sullivan, he'd read an article about her just a few months ago. 35 years old, built her company from the ground up, now worth millions. What was she doing in a small beach town, making strawberry jam with a waitress and his 6-year-old daughter? As if reading his thoughts, Brooke said quietly, "This doesn't change anything about yesterday, about how much I enjoyed spending time with you both." Xavier wanted to believe her, but experience had taught him that people from different worlds rarely found common ground for long. Still, as he watched Brooke help Lily stir the bubbling strawberry mixture, her face alight with genuine enjoyment, he couldn't deny the connection he felt with her. They spent the afternoon making jam, eating sandwiches on the small patio behind the house. And later, when Lily asked to watch her favorite movie, all three squeezed onto the sofa together. Xavier was acutely aware of Brooke beside him, of the fresh scent of her perfume and the warmth of her arm against his. By the time the movie ended, Lily was fast asleep, her head in Brooke's lap. Carefully, Xavier lifted his daughter and carried her to her bedroom. When he returned, Brooke was standing by the window, looking out at the sunset. "I should probably go," she said, though she made no move toward the door. "You could stay for dinner," Xavier offered. "Nothing fancy, just spaghetti." Brooke turned to face him, a soft smile on her lips. "Spaghetti sounds perfect." As Xavier prepared dinner, Brooke set the table, moving around his kitchen as if she'd been there many times before. There was an easy domesticity to it that both comforted and unnerved him. "So," Xavier said as he stirred the sauce, "CEO of a major tech company." "That's impressive." Brooke shrugged. "It's just a job." "A job that keeps calling you on your vacation," Xavier pointed out. "Fair point." Brooke sighed. "We're in the middle of a potential acquisition. The board wanted me to cancel this trip, but I've already postponed it 3 times. "Why this town?" Xavier asked. "It's not exactly a hotspot for tech executives. My parents brought me here when I was a child. It's one of my few happy memories of them together before the divorce." Brooke's expression turned wistful. "I always promised myself I'd come back someday." They ate dinner at the small kitchen table, talking long after the food was gone. Brooke told him about building her company from a startup in her garage to the industry leader it was today. Xavier shared stories about his journey as a single father, the challenges and the unexpected joys. "What about your astronomy dreams?" Brooke asked. "Do you ever think about going back to school?" Xavier laughed softly. "On what time or what money? People find ways to make things work when it's important to them." "Maybe. But right now, Lily is what's important. Everything else can wait." Brooke's eyes softened. "That's what makes you a good father, Xavier. But it's okay to want things for yourself, too." The conversation flowed easily between them, covering everything from favorite books to childhood memories to future hopes. By the time Brooke glanced at her watch, it was past midnight. "I can't believe how late it is," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. "I should call a cab." "Stay," Xavier said, the word escaping before he could think better of it. At Brooke's raised eyebrow, he quickly added, "I mean, I can sleep on the couch. You can have my bed." Brooke hesitated. "I wouldn't want to impose." "It's no imposition. It's late, and cabs are expensive. Besides," he added with a smile, "Lily will be thrilled to find you here in the morning." After a moment's consideration, Brooke nodded. "Okay, thank you." Xavier found her a t-shirt to sleep in and showed her to his bedroom. As he was about to leave, Brooke caught his hand. "Thank you for today, Xavier, for not treating me differently after I told you." Xavier looked down at their joined hands, then back up to her face. "You're still the woman who helped my daughter color and made strawberry jam and fell asleep during the movie. The CEO thing is just context." Brooke's smile was worth any awkwardness he might feel sleeping on his too-short couch. The next morning, Xavier woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet laughter from the kitchen. He found Brooke and Lily making pancakes, both still in their pajamas, flour dusting Lily's cheeks and Brooke's borrowed t-shirt. "Good morning," Brooke said, a hint of shyness in her smile. "We thought we'd surprise you." "Consider me surprised," Xavier replied, unable to stop the grin spreading across his face. The sight of them together in his kitchen felt inexplicably right. After breakfast, Brooke reluctantly said she needed to return to the inn to change clothes and handle a few work calls. "But maybe we could meet later, for lunch or dinner, or both," Lily suggested hopefully. Brooke laughed. "Both sounds wonderful." Xavier drove her back to the Sandpiper, Lily chattering from the back seat about their plans for the day. When they arrived, Brooke turned to him. "I'm off the phone by noon. Meet me on the beach in front of the inn." Xavier nodded, suddenly aware of how much he was looking forward to seeing her again. They spent the next 5 days falling into a pattern. Mornings were for separate responsibilities, Xavier's shifts at the restaurant. Brooke's unavoidable work calls. But afternoons and evenings belonged to the three of them. They built sandcastles on the beach, hiked to a nearby lighthouse, and spent one memorable evening stargazing from the back of Xavier's truck, parked on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was during that night, with Lily asleep between them and the Milky Way stretched above, that Xavier realized he was falling in love with Brooke Sullivan. The thought terrified him. She would leave in a few days, return to her world of board meetings and business deals, while he stayed behind, waiting tables and making ends meet. What could he possibly offer someone like her? The next day, a rare summer storm kept them indoors. They baked cookies in Xavier's kitchen, played board games, and when Lily took her afternoon nap, found themselves alone on the sofa, the rain pattering against the windows. "When do you leave?" Xavier asked, voicing the question he'd been avoiding. "Friday," Brooke said softly. 3 more days." Xavier nodded, his eyes fixed on the rain outside. "Back to reality." "Xavier," Brooke turned to face him, her expression serious. "These past days with you and Lily, they've been more real than anything in my life for a long time." Xavier finally looked at her. "But they're not your reality, Brooke. Your life is boardrooms and business trips and probably a penthouse apartment somewhere. Not small rental houses and school pickups and worrying about electric bills." "Is that what you think?" "That I'm slumming it here, playing house before I go back to my real life. Aren't you?" The words came out harsher than he intended. Brooke's eyes flashed with hurt. "No, I'm discovering what's been missing from my life, connection. Joy, someone who sees me for who I am, not what I've achieved." "And what happens after Friday? You fly back to—" "Where is it you live?" "Boston," Brooke said quietly. "Right, Boston, and we become what? A vacation memory. A story you tell your friends about the quaint little family you met at the beach." Brooke stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, Brooke. I learned that when my wife walked out, when my mother moved away, when I had to give up school to work 2 jobs so Lily could have everything she needs." Xavier ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said all that." Brooke turned to face him, her expression softer now. "Don't apologize for being honest, but don't assume you know what I want or what I'm thinking." "What do you want then?" Before she could answer, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. The moment was lost as they both turned their attention to the child, but the question hung in the air between them for the rest of the evening. The next day, Xavier had an early shift at the restaurant. He arranged for his neighbor, Mrs. Petrovich, to watch Lily, turning down Brooke's offer to look after her. He needed space to think, to prepare himself for the inevitable goodbye. When his shift ended at 2, he found Brooke waiting at the restaurant, sitting at the same table where they'd first met. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi," he replied, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. "I wasn't expecting to see you until later. I know, but we need to talk, and I didn't want to wait." Brooke took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about what happens after Friday." Xavier's heart sank. Here it came, the gentle letdown, though it's been wonderful, but— "I'm not going back to Boston on Friday," Brooke said. Xavier blinked. "What?" "I'm extending my vacation. I've already called the inn and arranged to stay another 2 weeks." "Why?" Xavier asked, though he hoped he knew the answer. "Because I'm not ready to say goodbye to you, or to Lily." Brooke reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. "I know we're from different worlds. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is complicated. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I ever have before." Xavier stared at her, afraid to believe what he was hearing. "And after those 2 weeks, that's what I want us to figure out, together." Brooke squeezed his hand. "I'm not promising it will be easy. But I think what we've found is worth exploring. Don't you?" Xavier's mind raced with practical concerns: her job in Boston, his life here, the logistics of a long-distance relationship. But his heart knew only one truth: he didn't want to lose her. "Yes," he said finally, "I do." The relief on Brooke's face was palpable. "Good, because I think I'm falling in love with you, Xavier Benson." Xavier stood, pulling Brooke to her feet and into his arms. "I think I'm already there," he murmured before kissing her. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of happiness. Xavier introduced Brooke to his friends, took her to his favorite hidden spots along the coast, and watched in wonder as she and Lily grew ever closer. They talked late into the night about possibilities, him possibly taking online astronomy courses, her working remotely part of the time, trips to Boston, visits to the beach town. On her last night before returning to Boston, they sat on Xavier's patio, a sleeping Lily curled between them on the outdoor loveseat. "I spoke to my board today," Brooke said, her voice quiet in the darkness. "I told them I need to make some changes." Xavier tensed slightly. "What kind of changes?" "I'm restructuring my role, less day-to-day management, more strategic oversight, and I'm opening a new office." "Where?" Xavier asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "In Portland. It's only an hour from here." Brooke turned to face him, her expression earnest in the soft patio lights. "I'm not asking you to uproot your life. I know this is home for you and Lily, but I want to be where you are as much as I can." Xavier was stunned. "You do that? For us?" "For all of us," Brooke corrected gently. "Because I've discovered something in these 3 weeks, Xavier. Success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with." Xavier pulled her close, careful not to disturb Lily. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I love you too," she replied. "Both of you." 1 year later, Xavier stood on the deck of a small but beautiful beach house, watching as Lily raced along the shore with their new puppy, a golden retriever named Stella. The house was a gift from Brooke, or rather, an investment they'd made together, a symbol of their shared future. He felt arms wrap around his waist from behind and leaned back into Brooke's embrace. "Penny for your thoughts," she murmured. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," Xavier replied, turning to face her. "How different life was a year ago." Brooke smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners the way he loved. "Are you happy with how things turned out? The commuting, the compromises?" Xavier pretended to consider this. "Well, dating a CEO has its perks. The private jet access is nice." Brooke swatted his arm playfully. "Be serious." "I am serious about how much I love you," Xavier said, pulling her close. "About how perfect my life feels now, about how excited I am for our future." Brooke's smile softened. "Speaking of the future," she took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "I was going to wait until tonight to tell you, but I can't hold it in anymore." Xavier's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Are you?" Brooke nodded, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. 8 weeks. I found out yesterday." With a whoop of joy, Xavier lifted Brooke and spun her around, setting her gently back on her feet when he remembered her condition. "We're having a baby," he whispered in awe. "We're having a baby," she confirmed, laughing through her tears. "Lily's going to be a big sister." Xavier looked out at his daughter, still racing along the beach, then back at the woman in his arms, the woman who had changed everything with a simple act of kindness on a summer day. "A year ago, I was a struggling single dad just trying to make ends meet," Xavier said, his voice thick with emotion. "Now I'm taking online classes, working at the planetarium, and starting a family with the most amazing woman I've ever met. How did I get so lucky?" Brooke reached up to touch his face. "It wasn't luck, Xavier. It was you. Your kindness, your strength, your heart. That's what I fell in love with." As the sun began to set over the ocean, casting golden light across the water, Xavier held Brooke close, watching Lily's joyful play and thinking of the child who would join their family in the months to come. Life had a way of surprising you, he reflected. Sometimes, the most unexpected encounters led to the greatest joys. And sometimes, helping a stranger with a broken glass could change your life forever.